The tenants of a French apartment building must try to survive the night when someone brings home a rare and very deadly species of spider. Hopefully we'll have at least a few good scares in the creature feature, Infested. Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tim.
Mercy.
Very good, Tim. By the time we're done with this show, however many decades away that is, you're going to have learned to say hello in every language, because every time we do a foreign film, you're like, oh, I'm going to say hello in French and Japanese and whatever.
Well, I'm pretty sure I didn't say hello there, because I think hello is just bonjour, which I guess I could have said.
Yeah, it's true. You said thank you, right?
Yes.
Well, you're welcome, I suppose. I don't know what French is for you're welcome. Welcome, everyone.
Do you think the French are welcoming people? Come on.
I said I do not know the French for the phrase "you are welcome."
And I'm saying they're very snooty people. I don't think they're giving out gratitude willy-nilly.
Oh, I thought you were trying to make me look bad. Instead, you were just digging your own hole. That's fine. Welcome,
everyone. Let the French come for us. I'm so scared.
Welcome, everyone. This is a horror movie
Actually, podcast. I have seen High Tension. They're messed up people. This is a horror movie podcast. We talk about a horror movie on this show. I'm just pausing after each sentence now, just in case you've got another addendum to make. All right. Yes. Welcome, everyone. We are today talking about a French film, if that wasn't obvious based on that shambles of an introduction. But we are today going to be talking about Infested, which is a newish film. It's listed as 2023, but for all intents and purposes for us, it's a 2024 movie. It's a spider movie. We're doing a movie about spiders. So we'll start spoiler free, of course, as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we go into spoilers. And just before we get started, I'll just remind you that if you are enjoying the show, do please hit the like button. It helps us out a bunch. More people will find us. And you can get bonus content over on Patreon, but I'll tell you more about that at the end of the show. So, it's a French movie set in an apartment building. Spiders be spidering around. Maybe even to a unrealistic degree, I will say. I'm just saying, I don't think this is based on a real species of spider. I could be wrong. No. I'm not an expert. But I'm fairly certain that there's some fantastical qualities to this spider species. I think if there's a species of spider that could do this,
we'd all be dead.
The world would, just be over.
We'd just be gone. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that's really the premise. It's that simple, to be honest. There's not really much to explain beyond that before I ask the question. So, this might be even with Tim's awful interruptions in my introduction, this still might be one of the quickest start to asking the questions we've had in a long time. But Tim.
Yeah.
What did you think of Infested?
Oh, so now you want to know what I think. Okay.
Who could have saw that coming? I mean, it's not like I do it every single episode or anything.
Yeah, so I had a lot of... My cat's driving me crazy. I had a lot of high hopes going in for this. It's been getting a lot of buzz. I think it's one of those ones that must have been at some festivals or something last year, and I've been hearing people talking about it and saying that it's really good. And of course the really big, and so I was already pretty excited, but the thing that really got my attention was I forget how long ago it was after this came out, but seems like pretty quickly what are these cats doing? All right. So pretty quickly, it seems like the director became attached to the new Evil Dead movie, which... I think there's a plastic container that we had some dry food in, but the dry food's all gone, but the cats still think that there's dry food in there. So they're just
going at it like it's like the carcass of a dead animal, like trying to claw it open. Good. Oh dear Lord. Which I said that in front of my kid the other day, and he's been repeating it to me ever since. So that's fun to have a 3-year-old look at you and say, "Oh dear Lord." Anyway, so yeah, I was pretty excited about this because, like, obviously, it seems like the direction that the new Evil Dead movies are going is that, they try to find kind of like, young and talented, interesting filmmakers to kind of helm these like Evil Dead spin-offs or one-off kind of movies or whatever. So yeah, obviously that grabbed my attention. It's like, oh, okay, if Sam and Bruce think this guy's got the goods, I'm
sorry, Tim, are you in first name basis with Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell?
I think the amount of times I've had to buy the Evil Dead movies, I think I should be. Oh, this is the bootleg DVD edition with the alternate ending. Okay, I'll get this. Oh, now this is the ultimate tin plate edition.
You can't count bootleg versions. They're not seen a penny of that.
No, it was like a real version, but they just called it the bootleg version. Like, you remember, like in the like mid 2000, early mid 2000s, when like DVDs were booming and like everything had to have like a name to it. Like, it always had to be like the unrated crazy edition. Like, yeah, whatever. And I could be totally wrong and misremembering it, but I'm pretty sure there was like a bootleg edition. There was an official edition, but just called that. Anyway, so yeah, so I was pretty excited going into this, and let's be honest, like, we've been watching some not so great stuff lately, so could use a win. So I was excited to watch something that actually, seemed to have some good buzz and positivity going about it. And I gotta say, I was pretty happy with the movie. I think definitely what the director's strengths was like, at least for me, like, really, make me care for the characters. I think they're really well done and they were fun to follow. Aside from, I would say, like, the main character Caleb, I did like quite a bit, even if he makes some pretty bonehead moves in the beginning. Like, you should probably be a little more careful with your like rare endangered spider, but whatever. But yeah, no, I think he did a really good job with the characters. I really liked how they used the setting. Like, to me, this is what I kind of wish Evil Dead Rise had done, where I actually feel like we were exploring more of the space and going in different areas, and like, we weren't just kind of stuck in like one room or unit or whatever. And yeah, I think they do some pretty cool things with the spiders. I do have kind of one, I guess, slightly, I don't want to say like a major complaint, but like, if I was going to criticize anything, I do kind of wish it was maybe a little gorier or more grisly. I know there's like only so much you can do, like with spiders, and I do think they did some like cool stuff, but I wish there were maybe some more intense like death scenes or something, or kills. Like, a lot of times it kind of just amounts to like, oh no, the spiders are like crawling all over you, which would be very scary and stuff. But I mean, I guess it's a good thing to say, though, that like, despite that, I still enjoyed the movie and had fun with it. But yeah, those are my thoughts.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I thought the movie was pretty solid. I don't think it's perfect. I do think the ending goes a little off the rails, and there's a bit like 2/3 in where they set up a really interesting set piece that I thought was a great idea, and then I thought the execution of it was a bit lackluster. So there's definitely some bits here or there, but I will say that it did a good job of feeling reasonably well paced. I like the use of the location, like you said. The apartment building is used relatively well. I think the characters,
it does a good job of making them feel kind of naturalistic. At times, honestly, they're almost a little annoying early on because they're shouting a lot at each other.
Oh, sure.
And you get like a little bit of a sort of abrasiveness from that. But it does do a couple of interesting things where it sets up, okay, a couple of characters have a bit of a history. It kind of pays that off in ways that are different than I expected, which I appreciate. So, no, I agree. I mean, it's a decent little group of characters. Like, the main group of, like, 5 that you kind of follow are interesting. It also sets up some sort of B characters around the apartment building because we have to have, potential victims and things like that. I think it's pretty solid. I think maybe by the end, I kind of was a little bit down from where I was in the sense that, like, there was a point, like, maybe a third in where I thought, oh, this might end up being, like, a great, like, little creature feature that I hold in a high regard. I think by the end I wasn't quite at that point. I was more like, okay, that was good. I'm glad I watched it. Like, this was a solid movie that I'd recommend as a nice, easy watch, unless you're arachnophobic, in which case it's probably not an easy watch.
Sure.
But there were some fun jolts when like spiders would jump out from places, and you'd kind of like they did a good job editing right at the moment after they jump, so that and I say after they jump, like they're not effects most of the time, because they are, but. Right. Yeah, and the effects are, there's moments where they feel a little bit fake. There's, but I think generally speaking, because spiders generally are just kind of like shapes that are moving, as opposed to something you have to see in detail, you get away with a lot. So,
sure.
No, it's not bad. Like, I certainly don't feel. As far as him doing the next Evil Dead goes, the director, I don't feel that Sebastian here is a bad choice based on this. I feel like I could see him, doing a good job with that. And I liked Evil Dead Rise, and I thought the director of that's previous movie was trash. So,
Right. I mean, yeah, it's not a guarantee that like he's gonna make a masterpiece or anything, but I'm definitely excited to see what he can do. There's certainly some like quick shots and stuff early on that like, I mean, I think if I was watching it without knowing the Evil Dead thing, then I probably wouldn't have thought about it too much. But like watching it with that in my mind, there's stuff that I was like, okay, I can see how this could translate to like an Evil Dead movie. Something that that you said that I'll agree with is like really like using the set pieces effectively. There's like stuff early on that it just does that like horror movie thing where they're just doing like going through something normal. Like in an apartment building where like, maybe like something's not working or they have to do something specific. And it's just like a nice little setup where it's like, ooh, like I bet that's going to pay off like later, or we'll get something fun out of that. So yeah, I like the kind of like the setup and stuff. And I agree with what you said where maybe it was a little bit of the hype going in, because I'd heard a lot of, big hype and stuff for this, and I agree that it wasn't like the masterpiece that I was kind of hoping it would be, but still solid. Like, I don't really have like anything bad to say.
Yeah, it's good. I just don't think it quite hits great territory, right?
Yeah,
but I mean, we've been watching mostly stinkers for a while.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's elevated itself like high above a lot of the stuff we've watched lately.
So yeah, I mean that's kind of my general feelings in the movie. I will say this apartment building has got a very unique shape. Like,
right, yeah.
It's such a weird, because early on, because there's a couple of scenes before we get to the apartment building at the start. Once we're there, we're pretty much there for the whole movie. But when we first see our main character Caleb walking like through this area, and it's a building that's like I'm sure there's a term for this, but it's like there's like two sides to it, and like a courtyard in the middle, and on both sides the building has got like a big circle, and then there's like sort of lower bit going around, so it almost looks like if you imagine like a championship belt where there's like thin bits coming in and then a big circle in the middle, but that's the building, and it's that on two sides. There's two structures that are that shape. So it really stuck out, and when he was first walking through it, I was thinking like, oh, like this must be like some important like government building or something, like because it's so fancy looking, they put a lot of effort into this. And I was like, oh no, this is just the apartment building he lives in. Okay, I guess France be crazy with their architecture, I guess.
And like the funny thing is that it feels like it's probably something that's supposed to be like I don't know what the term would be, like that, like definitely not like more upscale, like it seems like a little bit of like the, I don't know, like a kind of ghetto or something.
Yeah, it's a bunch of poor people living here. It's not. This is not the upper middle class apartment building by any means.
But like you said, just like the kind of unique design and shape just makes it look a lot more like swankier. You're like, ooh.
Yeah, very fancy. So our characters in the movie, we got Caleb, who's our main guy, who buys the spider and brings it home. We won't talk about that yet, but that's the setup. He's living with his sister, named Manon, if I'm pronouncing that right. And they, they've got some stress in their relationship. They don't seem to be in the best of terms right now. It seems like they're fighting about a lot of things, struggling with the fact that their mother's not there anymore. We don't really get a good sense of like how long it's been since their mother died, but that's the backstory with them. His friend Mattis lives in the building as well and kind of helps him in his little criminal enterprise. What's this criminal enterprise, you might ask? Well, Caleb likes to sell what I assume are stolen sneakers for the Americans watching. But actually, I'm trying to think. Did my subtitles say sneakers or trainers? I don't remember now.
I want to say they were sneakers, but
it probably was. I'm just so used to like seeing both versions. I don't really, it doesn't faze me. But so yeah, you've got them, and then the other two characters are Jordy, who's an old friend of Caleb, who's kind of estranged and is around for a reason that we'll get to when we're talking through the movie, and his girlfriend Lila, who also seems to be someone that knows a bunch of them from long ago as well. So, but again, so you've got both his sister and his old best friend, both of whom are kind of in like not great places with them. So it really tells this idea of a really dysfunctional life right now. And also he's selling stolen shoes to make a living, which how he ended up with all these shoes, I don't know, but they don't get into it. So yeah, but the shoe boxes are very important in the movie, though. They're a big plot point. We get a lot of shoebox stuff, and a lot of Nike product placement. Which, to be fair, he's supposed to be selling expensive sneakers. It makes sense that they'd all be branded. So why not?
Oh sure, yeah.
So hey, yeah, but yeah, that's our main characters. Obviously, there's some minor characters as well in the building, which I do appreciate. I always like the feeling that you get to know a bunch of people in like a movie like this.
Yeah, I think if you're using like the setting of like a big apartment building, it's fun to meet some characters and kind of go in and out of their rooms or whatnot. And I thought they did a good job like setting some people up, and you get some fun stuff with them.
Yeah, there's a guy that wants to buy shoes. There's like a landlord who's like a complete asshole and is always like accusing Caleb of stuff. And
was he the landlord? I didn't know.
I think so. Because the sister's like doing work on the apartment, and he says, "Oh, she's fixing up my place," and I think that's what that meant.
Oh, okay, that makes sense then. Because I wasn't sure if he was like like a landlord, or if he's just like a really like one of those really nosy neighbors that's like sticking their nose in your business, and you're like, why do you care about this? Like, this doesn't affect you.
Yeah, and then there's also this sort of like older woman who's about to like move house, but she like knows Caleb and that, and was friends with his mum, who is in there as well. So yeah, there's a little selection of sub characters to sort of fill out the building and whatnot. I mean, the spiders themselves. There's probably some spoilers by saying stuff about them in the later part of the movie. I'll just say they're interesting in that, because obviously when you think of a spider movie, you think of arachnophobia, right? That's where your mind goes to. Which, have we ever done arachnophobia?
I don't think so.
I don't think we have.
Also, it's kind of weird that like it does feel like spiders are having like a bit of a moment, because they also just had that spider movie Sting that just came out like a few weeks ago.
I have not seen such a thing, but
it had a small theater release in here. I don't know if it was like a super big one, but that kind of looked like a fun movie. It looked like kind of like a Gremlins kind of thing where like someone befriends like a spider and then it gets loose and whatnot. But
Okay.
I could be wrong. But I felt like there was like maybe another spider movie or something I heard about or something. But I don't know. Maybe spiders are getting a little big.
I don't know. Maybe just a coincidence, right? Sometimes these movies come in twos.
Yeah.
You know, they come in twos. You get your two volcano movies, your two asteroid movies, your two whatever movies. Like, it happens. It's a thing.
Sure.
Yeah, but I would say to compare it to arachnophobia of course used like a widow, I think, or something akin to that. So it's like a sort of thick black spider. The spider in this is a bit more like skinny. You know, got that kind of like brown, kind of skinny legged kind of look. So it feels different. If you're going into this with your only real spider movie being arachnophobia, and to be honest, thinking about it, that's probably true for me, unless we're counting something like Tarantula, which is about a giant spider, like a kaiju-sized spider.
And the only other thing I can really think of is Eight-Legged Freaks.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. I guess that's
it's been forever since I've seen it, but
yeah, I only saw it the once a long time ago. But yeah, that's definitely probably the last mainstream spider movie.
I don't know if you count Wild Wild West, but
no, I'm not counting a robot spider. Come on, Tim. Come on. Yeah, it's kind of wild though. It's been over 20 years since the last American mainstream spider movie.
Yeah, no, that's true.
And we're not counting Spider-Man's people before anyone gets smart in the comments.
But yeah, I mean, like, I feel like spiders are a pretty universal, like, thing that people are afraid of. But I guess in general, we probably don't really get a ton of, like, kind of creepy crawly movies, like bugs and snakes and stuff. You know, like every now and again, you'll get maybe a movie like, you know, Anaconda or Snakes on a Plane or something. But I don't know. Yeah, it's not like a constant for those type of things.
I think it was more common in the 70s and 80s, like, yeah. Oh, because is that a Shatner movie called King of the Spiders or something? Like, I think so. I definitely watched something, and that one's a bit sad in a way because they actually killed a lot of real spiders when they were making that movie. Which, I mean, like, I'll kill a spider. I'm not saying I'm like completely against that, but like, there's literally shots in that movie where they'll drive a car over like a bunch of real looking spiders, and you're like, you're just murdering spiders by the boatload here, and clearly there's no regulations or anything in this movie because it's the 70s. But all right.
Like, I mean, if you're killing a spider or something, like, I mean, if, you know, like, if you can, you know, it is nice to, yeah, scoop them up and let them outside. But I understand, like, sometimes it's not always, like, you know, easy or convenient to do or whatever. But I mean, like, if there's a spider in your house and you kill one or whatever. But yeah, it's definitely different to, like, if you're a movie where, like, you're literally bringing spiders there just so you can kill them. Like, that's, like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, a spider's entered your domain. I feel like there's some level of understanding.
And then, like, wasn't there like a big like a sci-fi movie about a giant spider? Was it like Them or They, something like that?
Them, I would say.
Them,
I think.
Okay.
I don't think I've seen that. I've seen a French movie called Them, but that wasn't about a spider.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, I know. I have seen the. You're thinking of the 50s movie. I have seen that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I've seen that. Yeah. I guess I've seen more spider movies than I thought I had. Arachnophobia is the one that I grew up with, so it's just the one that sticks in my head the most.
I mean, that's like that's the one that's like, you know, really good. Like, not saying that the other ones aren't, like, you know, I haven't seen all of them, or if it has, it's been a while. So, like, I mean, I'm sure there's fun to be had with them, but yeah, Arachnophobia seems to be kind of like the one that's like legitimately good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's got Jeff Daniels and John Goodman in it, so
sure. Yeah.
So that's the thing. All right, let's get a spoiler warning, and we can get into Infested. So you have been warned, everyone. Spoilers are now incoming. So the movie actually starts with
these guys who go and like look for species of like animals in the desert, and they're looking for spiders, and they eventually like find this hole that's got spiders in it, and to sell how dangerous the spiders are, this one guy gets like bit in the face, and he's like, you know, screaming. He's on the ground. He's kicking his legs, and one of the other guys just pulls out a machete and goes and kills him, and that's when it cuts to the title screen. And it's like, okay, so this is how dangerous it is if these spiders start biting you. It sells that idea, which really does bring into question that, you know, like, because this spider ends up in the back room of like a black market style dealer, and I'm like, it's not even like he's charging a lot for it. It's not like he knows it's an exotic spider and he's charging a lot for it. He basically throws it in as an extra with a pair of earrings that Caleb's buying for someone, and it's just kind of like, wait, you have no idea how expensive. So all I can think of is the only reason why they would take the risk of getting the really dangerous spider, presumably, is because it's worth a lot of money. But it seems like it's been passed around for like $20. So
right.
I don't really get the logic of these spider thieves or whatever we're calling them, but.
Yeah, no, I don't really understand. I mean, I feel like, I guess it's not that interested like in explaining the why of like how they get there or how they can like, you know, do what they do basically, which is fine. But yeah, I did wonder that as well. I'm also kind of curious because like, all right, so they're out in like the desert or something somewhere, and like they lift this rock and like, you know, all these spiders come out. But it's like, you know, it's very bright, the sun's out, and then later on in the movie we see that like kind of like their one weakness or whatever is like light. They seem to freeze in light.
I think a bright light makes them freeze, yeah. Which they do kind of set up when they're at the black market guy's place, and like Caleb's looking at the spider, he thinks it's dead because it's not moving, and I think that's meant to be showing that it's frozen because of the light.
Yeah. But then, like, wouldn't they freeze like in the sun when they're rushing out to that guy in the beginning? I don't know.
I admit I don't have an answer for that. My only guess is that sunlight's different.
I guess.
That's all I've got for you. Maybe it's more the sudden shock of light. Maybe that's the problem.
Yeah, it's a small nitpick. It didn't really like affect my enjoyment of the movie, but these are just questions. I'm just asking questions.
Yeah, I think it's a fair one, because when they first bring up the whole light thing about halfway through the movie, I was like, but we've seen them in light before. Like, even in the bathroom scene, like, you know, a bit earlier. Yeah. Like, that wasn't like super, super bright, but you know, it wasn't dark.
Right. Yeah.
So, you know, definitely, yeah, it's a little weird. I mean, maybe the argument is, we're in spoilers, so they keep getting bigger, right, every time they, like, reproduce. Yeah. Maybe when they're bigger, their eyes are bigger, so they're far more sensitive once they're bigger. Okay. Maybe that's it. Maybe when they're normal size, they're fine with light, but as they get bigger, their eyes are just getting blasted, so they like.
That's fair.
That's all I've got for you. That's all I can do.
Hey, I've heard worse.
Yeah.
So Caleb's getting this spider, because I guess one thing we didn't really mention is that he seems to like to collect kind of like, I guess, rare species. Like
he's got like scorpions and like reptiles and like tanks and stuff in his room. Yeah.
And I'm not sure if they mentioned it, but so I mean, obviously you get the backstory later that he wanted to open like a reptile farm with his friend or whatever. But I mean, aside from that though, did they ever say like these are things that he sells, or does he just like them because like that's his hobby or
I think
whatever?
He just likes them. I think it's just pets, effectively. Yeah.
Okay.
Also, was it a reptile farm or a zoo? Because I feel like what is a reptile farm exactly? Like, what are you farming?
I actually had like an uncle that had a small little store that he called a reptile ranch, but I mean it was basically like a pet store that just kind of, you know, specialized in like lizards and stuff like that. So that's what that's what I assume, but it was probably more of like, I don't know, just like a little place that they just had some animals like for conservation stuff to teach kids about, I assume.
Your dad's a bodybuilder and you've got an uncle who owned a lizard pet store. You've got such a weird family.
Who would have guessed?
And you're a failed comedian? Is that what we're going with?
If I was successful, I wouldn't be on this show. That's for sure.
How dare you? If you get successful, I expect endorsements. I expect lots of advertising and whatnot.
Well, then don't hold your breath for that.
How dare you? You don't get to be a big shot now without taking me with you. That's the rule.
All right, well, I'll I give up.
I feel like you really wanted to think of a joke there, but you couldn't. Which I feel like just further shows why you failed as a comedian. That was a great example.
That's fair.
I swear I'm not trying to give Tim a midlife crisis by the end of this episode. So Caleb takes the spider home, and like honestly, like here I'm like, oh damn, he's going to feel really bad when all this goes down later because this is all his fault. He brought this spider here. Like this is all on him. But you know, this is where we're introduced to the sister. It's where we're introduced to a couple of the minor characters. Like there's like a sort of cleaning lady who's like in the apartment building that he's nice to, and then this is like one of these little moments at the start of a movie where it tries to make you like the main character by like showing that he's kind to someone. He's like, he tries to help her with the trash, and then when a couple of teenagers start setting off firecrackers and they end up spilling some stuff, he like sort of, you know, he reprimands them a little bit. He acts a bit more like a grown up than maybe you expect him to. So it's like, okay, this is telling us that he's a decent person. He's a flawed person. He's selling stolen goods, but he's kind to people around him. So that's something. Why are you got a smirk on your face? What's so funny?
I'm just agreeing with you. It's fine.
Because it looks like you're plotting my demise, Tim. That's what it looks like.
I was thinking about how to get a spider over to you. What would be the best shipping option?
Return to sender. That's the best shipping option.
Does that work?
Well, I think if it's undelivered, it returns to sender. So I just won't accept the package. I'll be no, okay. Give it back.
Oh, I thought you meant like I could save money by putting your address as the return address and then like pretending like I sent it to myself and then being like, no, I don't want this. So then they send it back to you.
Okay. All right. So we're introduced to Caleb's apartment and his sister and all that. And we're also introduced to the fact that he is... So, because I think when he's buying the earrings, it sounds like it's for a girlfriend. Like, he even kind of implies that. But it's not. It's actually for this woman, Claudia, who's leaving, who lives upstairs. That he goes to, like, her going away party. And there's, like, you know, a bunch of the other characters we've met already are there. Before he goes up there, though, we also see him go down into the storage area, where he's got a storage locker. And that's where we meet Matthias for the first time. And we see all of his Nike shoes that he's got in here. And to the point where, like, Matthias is like his salesman and he whips out a notepad and says, hey, I need this in this size. And he's like, look, checking his stock. He's like, very professional business he's got going here.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so that sets up a bunch of stuff. But they go to the party. And again, it just sort of builds some of the other characters and that they all know each other. We get a few other, like, sort of, not even B-list, but like C-list characters kind of at the party. But again, we see him with Claudia. We see him give her the earrings. And he clearly cares about his neighbors. He cares about being here. It's kind of interesting, actually, because he's actually really healthy relationship-wise to a lot of people in this movie. But the two people that he's supposed to be closest to, he is, like, not healthy with at all.
Right.
He gets angry very easily. He just gets defensive. He shells up and won't tell them anything.
If anything, like if there was like a message to this movie, or the spiders represent something, it's kind of like just him bottling everything up and not talking about what he's supposed to, what he's going through, right? So it's all, the spiders represent it all just kind of flooding out and like causing chaos to everyone in his life. I'm stretching a little bit with that, but that was kind of the vibe I was getting as the movie went on.
I think that's something though that, like, I don't know, I can kind of relate to that, because I do feel like, not that I consider myself like a very angry person or something, but I do feel like the people I, get fed up with more are, maybe like people that I'm closer to, just because, you're around them more, and I don't know, maybe you feel more comfortable with them seeing that side of you, whereas like, someone that you're not very close with or something, you do just kind of want to be like, all right, I'll be the nice person, and don't want to get into an argument or whatever. But I don't know, I think there's some truth to that.
But I mean, this is basically, obviously the important thing is that before he came to the party, he put the spider into a shoebox.
This is like, I mean, I know you don't really know how dangerous this spider is gonna be or whatever, but it does feel like it's a little bit of a bonehead thing to do.
Honestly, his first thing was buying a spider that he didn't know the species of. That just felt like a super stupid, dangerous thing to do in the first place. But then he just pushed it in a shoebox, which has got a hole in the corner. So would you believe it? The spider sneaks his way out, or I should say she, because I mean, it definitely lays some eggs. And yeah.
Now,
so.
Do we see the hole before, or because I assume that the spider like chewed its way out of it, but maybe I missed it.
I don't know if I don't think we see it before, but we see it coming through the hole, like while he's gone. So I mean, maybe if you watch close, the hole was there. I don't know.
Okay.
I do not know. But when he comes back, he's like distressed to see the spider's not there, and he's like, "Oh, that's bad." And he's also distressed to find a little cocoon that the spider's left of like webbing, and he puts that into a shoebox as well. I'm only mentioning that because it does come up later.
Right.
It does come up. But he's in a mood when he wakes up. He gets woken up with his sister doing like maintenance work. She's like remodeling the bathroom and fixing stuff. And when he goes in, this is when we're introduced to his old friend Jordy and his girlfriend Lila, who are in here helping her redo the bathroom. And even his friend Matthias is here helping redo the bathroom. So he feels like he's the odd one out. He feels like they're all on the same side, and that he's like, he's angry, he wants to go for a shower, but he kind of calms down. But you get the sense that him and Jordy are really estranged here. They're getting quite snippy. You can tell they've not seen each other in a while, and it's things are kind of tense. But notably, a little bit later, when Jordy's in Caleb's bedroom with Matthias, and they're talking about all the creatures that he's got. There's a postcard or a photograph that they made as kids with advertising their lizard like zoo, and notably when Caleb comes in, he like grabs that quickly and puts it in his pocket. He doesn't want him to see it. Doesn't want him to see that he actually still thinks about their friendship, that it matters to him. So we get I mean, honestly, just to stick on this for a bit, I feel like I was surprised with how this progressed throughout the movie, because obviously they get into danger, they're fighting for their lives, and they start working together a bit more. But we don't get that moment where they kind of reconcile, or it has like a sort of final thing, and, Jordy dies, right? He has this big dramatic ending. And I thought it was very interesting. I was like, because when that happened, I was like, oh, shit. Like, I feel like they didn't finish their story. That's weird that he's already gone. But they kind of still do it with Lila, where Lila's the one now who brings up like, hey, what was going on with you two? Like, why? And then we get some of the backstory through like that conversation, and it's kind of interesting because Jordy, we find out had like a problem in his leg, and it turns out that Caleb was responsible for that, and he's also responsible for the spiders, so therefore he's technically responsible for his death. So it's the idea that this guilt that he's had since they were kids has grown and grown until like they're adults, and now it's like turned into like, oh, I murdered him. Like I did this to him. I thought that was an interesting way to like wrapped, because I think Lila felt like a sort of side character for a lot of the movie, but it felt like by the time Geordie died though, and I was like, oh, I'm surprised she's outliving him, but it made her more interesting that she was surviving instead, I guess. I don't know, there was like an interesting switcheroo there.
I really like the setup of like, you know, throughout the movie when people would be like, I swear, or whatever, and, you know, Caleb would always say like, oh, don't swear. And then I actually thought it was like genuinely kind of sweet and touching at the end where you know, he finally looks at the back of the postcard and you get to read what it says, and yeah, it's basically this kind of like heartfelt message, and then at the end it says like, you know, like, oh, like we're gonna open our reptile ranch or whatever, and then it says I swear, and it's like, oh, like that's why he was like so like affected by that and why he kept saying that throughout the movie. It was like a nice little bit of a setup and payoff.
Yeah, and there's a payoff to it as well, with when they're, you know, he's with Lila, but they've left the sister behind by accident, and he has to go back for her. And Lila's like, "You're going to go get her right and come back. You're not going to leave me." And he's like, "You know, I'm coming back." And she's like, "Swear." I think, you know, he really hesitates. So they pay it off in like action as well, towards the end of the movie. Yeah, we find out that he bought illegally, might I add, as a kid, bought a pet lizard that ended up biting Geordie in the leg, and it gave him like a permanent like nerve damage or something. So he's got like a bit of a limp, and it's like, okay, and that kind of like ended up like, because Geordie told them told the police what happened, and he got into trouble. That was kind of the start of their friendship breaking down. And then Geordie wasn't around after Caleb's mum died, and that kind of further, you know, broke them apart by the sounds of it.
But it's like, yeah, like he got mad, so he didn't visit him in the hospital, and then like he didn't visit Geordie when he was in the hospital, and then Geordie didn't visit him when his mom was in the hospital. And yeah, it is kind of interesting just to see like how you know, those things just kind of spiral, like where like you're literally, you know, the best of friends, and then yeah, that stuff, and it's kind of like interesting because it's one of those things where it's like, oh, like, you know, they're kind of like if they would have just sat down and talked about it and like explained their feelings, like they probably could have gotten over it, you know, very easily, instead of kind of like you were alluding to, like kind of like that bottling up and stuff. Like instead you just kind of let it fester and just makes it grow apart.
Yeah. So no, I mean that was mostly pretty good, that stuff. Yeah. But she also, Lila, when they're having this heart to heart, if you can even call it that, because she's pretty upset and pissed that her boyfriend's dead. She says two really important things that stuck out to me. One is that Geordie always covered for him and never, like, always told everyone that he was in like a scooter accident so that no one would hate him. And she specifically even says, "So I wouldn't hate you." And then the second thing that I thought was interesting, she said, because they don't really dwell on it, they kind of just move on, we like go to the next scene quite quickly. But she turns and says, after T says something about, "Oh, you've not been back in so long, or I've not seen you guys in so long," she turns and says, "What, do you really think that we came here to work on the bathroom?" And then moves on. The implication being that while Geordie was like immediately snippy with him when we first get introduced to him early in the movie, the implication there is that he wanted to come and do this to try and maybe see like Caleb, and maybe they could start getting to know each other again, and maybe get to some sort of forgiveness, or, you know, reconcile or whatever. So yeah, I mean, like that's the more human drama side of it. The only other human drama stuff is that Caleb thinks the sister doesn't care about living here, and she just wants to move, and that she doesn't care about the memory of their mother. Which this one was definitely weaker of the two like human drama stories, because it really just boils down to when they think they're going to die later on in the movie, she just says, "I do care about Mum. I do care about this place," and that's it. Like she just says that, and that's it.
Yeah.
So it's not as good as the Geordie and Caleb backstory and how that sort of plays out with Lila, but yeah, it's there. So
yeah, and again, I wasn't really expecting like to have this kind of, I guess, character arc for, you know, the Wild Spider movie, but they actually pulled it off like really well. Like I, you know, felt myself caring for these characters, and yeah, I actually thought like I wasn't like, you know, in tears or like anything like, oh, I was so emotional, but like I thought they did a good job of, you know, paying that stuff off, and I thought it was pretty touching.
Yeah, again, I think solid, not spectacular, but solid is a good descriptor of it. So, I mean, the actual spider shenanigans. So it's the guy who was like, what, TN? I think
That sounds right.
He was calling himself. He wanted to buy a pair of shoes, and he gets sold this sort of like dark gold pair of Nike shoes. Which is interesting. This is where we get introduced to like the landlord asshole who like sees them like swapping like a shoebox, and he just immediately assumes, oh, a shoebox with shoes in it? No way, that was drugs. You're giving him like a shoebox full of cocaine, which that's a lot of cocaine. Just like I'm pretty sure that would be a very expensive amount, but I mean, whatever. He seems convinced that Caleb's a drug dealer for some reason, of which we see no evidence of, I think, in the movie, that he's doing that. But he's convinced he is. But it's actually this guy TN who first encounters a spider, because like the one thing to compare it with arachnophobia is we got to do the spider in the shoe. Like,
of course, yeah.
You know, we got to do the spider in the shoe bit. So he's putting on his fancy new gold shoes, and he sort of, you know, pulls his foot out, and he's like, what was that? And he looks in, and then the spider comes out, or all the little spiders come out, because the main spider comes out and he stamps on it, he kills it, but then lots of these little spiders come out of the shoe and go up his arm, and you know, as this is happening, Caleb's like busy with others at like his friends, and he's arguing about stuff. So it cuts back to this guy eventually, and he's made his way up to his apartment, but he's like basically like having like a seizure on the floor, and he's like, you know, his eyes
like covered in
there's goo coming out of his eyes and all sorts.
He's like covered in bites and welts and stuff. Like it felt like to me like the implication was like they were maybe using him as like some type of nest or something, maybe, I don't know.
I think that seemed to be happening with a lot of the victims, like they were nesting in them, because and every time we get a new like, you know, batch of offspring, they always seem to be a bit bigger than before, because after this they you know, because basically like because he was trying to phone Caleb and Caleb was ignoring it because he was in the middle of like a heated debate, they come to his door and he won't answer, but they hear the dog barking as if something's not right. So eventually they just break in and they find his dead body. So I was actually really surprised that it just cut to the police and like paramedics being there, and I'm like, oh, like I was expecting this to be pretty self-contained and I wasn't expecting outsiders to come in. But it actually ends up being a big plot point, because they're like, hey, in case this was some kind of like contagion or something, no one can leave. And this is actually why Jordy and Lila stick around, is they're told they're not allowed to leave until they've cleared that this isn't like a quarantine situation. So yeah,
it almost it kind of turns the movie into Wreck. Like it's like arachnophobia.
Yeah, arachnophobia, very good. Can't wait for the porn parody Rectomophobia.
Oh, there you go. I wonder where the spiders are coming out of in that one.
There's, well, one good option, right?
Yeah.
And I'm using the word good there very loosely. So
I will say I did like this. I guess kind of like, if you consider this like, I mean, aside from the cold open, I guess this is kind of like the first kill. But I actually like the way this was done. Like, yeah, because you have the initial spider, which, you know, kind of feel like, all right, this is gonna be like, yeah, this is the big spider or whatever, and then he kills it very easily, and it's like, oh, okay, I wonder what's gonna happen now or something. And then, yeah, I didn't expect like all these little tiny baby spiders to come crawling out, and just like swarming all over him. And then, yeah, when they cut back to him, he does like, you know, it doesn't like I think the makeup looked pretty good, where like, yeah, he looks like just like, you know, like he's gone to shit, and then, yeah, just like, you know, stumbling over, can't walk, and it definitely makes it feel like, oh, okay, like these little fellows are not someone you want to mess with.
Yeah, because the next big set piece is the bathroom stuff.
Yeah. Oh, and I guess maybe just to point out too, the dog also eats the dead spider.
Yeah, that comes up a little bit because they've got the dog for a while. But the next big set piece is in the bathroom where I think Lila's talking to either Jordy, maybe Caleb, I can't remember. But you see like spiders starting to come out of the vents in the background, and she's on her own, and eventually she sees one and like freaks out and jumps in the shower and like closes the shower door and starts screaming that there's a spider. So we get this like extended sequence here where Jordy comes in and he's determined to try and like use a glass to trap it, right? And he's yelling to some of the others, no, I'm not going to kill it, I'm not going to kill it, I'm going to just capture it and release it. But his girlfriend and Matthias are just like, no, smash it, it's terrifying. But, this is the first spider we notice, so that's definitely bigger. That's bigger than the first one. It's not, like, ridiculously big. It's still like a realistic-looking size for a spider, but it's definitely bigger. So, Caleb doesn't think it's his spider, and he's technically right, it's not. It came from his spider, but it's not his spider. But after they do this whole thing, and there's a lot of like, and eventually Jordy just starts trying to kill it because it's like this scene I think is really effective because every time he goes to try and trap it and the spider just jolts at the last second and he jumps back, like those were all effective little jump scares. Like it worked. Like even though it was consistent, it was very effective in how it kept jolting. So
yeah, and I do think, and again, it kind of feels like true to life. Like sometimes you see like it's not like a spider or like a little lizard or something, and like they can be very still, and then you kind of go like, all right, let me scoot it away or something. And then when you get closer, like anytime it does twitch or something, like I mean, I guess maybe not everyone will react that way, but like I definitely get twitchy and be like, oh, like jump whenever it makes like a little movement.
Yeah. And after this, when they're out in the hall, right? Because this is the thing, the scene ends with lots of little spiders coming out of where the spider was. So they jump out and they actually put tape all over the surrounds of the door to try and block anything from coming out. And they're talking about, okay, what caused this? And they're like, Caleb, is this you? Was that your spider? And he's like, I don't have a spider. Like, go check all my tanks. I don't have any spiders. But his sister did notice him putting a towel at the bottom of the door earlier when the spider was loose. So he admits that he got a spider and that this might be his fault. So this is very much kind of the start of that guilt trip for the movie. And honestly, it's not too long after this where like it progresses very quickly where they want to leave, right? I mean, it's not too quick. They just sit around. They try and watch to see if like there's anything on the news about what's going on in this building. They try and see look up the spider, and they do a little bit of exposition that there's this species of spider that keeps getting bigger to like fight off predators or something. Which at that point I'm like, okay, this sounds like a made up thing. But
well, I think the two things that are like pretty unbelievable are, one, that yes, they can just like keep potentially growing bigger and bigger.
I mean, by the end of the movie, we're talking the size of like a reasonable sized dog, right?
Yeah,
it's pretty big by the end.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that, and then also, I mean, I don't really know anything about how spiders reproduce or anything, but it seems like the amount of babies they have, like, I don't know, seems a little unbelievable. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I don't know if that's accurate or not, or if that's just like a made up movie thing, but
again, though, it's like, obviously this isn't stuff that the movie's really that concerned about explaining and stuff. It's not really the focus, so it's like I'm fine with it. It didn't really bother me, but I was curious about that.
Yeah, so basically most of them want to leave, but Caleb and Matthias are like, no, we can't leave without getting a lot of the neighbors we like gone, and like Claudia because he knows he likes her, the younger guys and stuff. So they're like, okay, fine, we'll give you 15 minutes to go and try and like convince them all to leave. And when they do, they end up finding Claudia like dead, like sitting in her chair. And I like the effective shot where they open the door to get in, and you can see like just one single line of a spider web in the foreground. It's just it's just subtle, and obviously lots of little spiders come out of her as well. And then there's the other old guy that looks from the other apartment who looks kind of sick as well. So I think this is, I will say here, it felt like it escalated very quickly where we get this montage going around the building of like just tons of people like dead from spiders and like webs. Because basically, it's not too long after this where they're going through the building and there's just like webbing on like every like hallway and every floor, as if like the spiders are multiplying at some sort of exponential rate, and they're just taking over the building. Also, one of the young guys gets attacked in his room as well. He finds a hole in the floor and he gets attacked by spiders.
Yeah, and then I don't know the exact sequence of events, but we see the cleaning lady also like take someone.
Yeah, that's kind of like running throughout a lot of the stuff we've already talked about, where you see her kind of like cleaning and she finds like one spider and she like pokes her head up into like a room, and she ends up in a room where I think it's where the guy originally get bit with the shoe, because the shoe's still sitting there. And there's like webbing everywhere, and she like tries to like spray stuff, but obviously she meets her demise because like you know, these spiders are just, man, they've been doing the arachnosteroids.
Yeah. And I do like with the old man too, when you see in his apartment and he just has like all these different spiders under like different types of bowls and glasses and stuff. I thought that was a cool shot. Yeah, again, if I'm gonna complain like a little bit though, like I do think it looks cool when you see a lot of the aftermath, like we're saying, like, oh yeah, you're seeing these dead bodies covered in webs or like spiders crawling out of people. That stuff looks cool, but I am kind of missing like, actually seeing the more of the deaths and the kills.
It definitely felt like it was missing one or two more actual like suspense building to kill scene in the middle. I felt like we cut to this montage. I feel like if just one more death that led into that montage, I think might have felt better. May have felt appropriate, but again, not a big deal. Like, I feel there's a lot of little nitpicks, but none of them are like big deals in the grand scheme of things. But they maybe just add up a little bit to the point where
that's what I kind of feel like. We're saying it's like a pretty good movie, but it doesn't quite reach that great status. But maybe if you take a lot of this little stuff and just tweak it a bit or add a bit more onto it, like maybe it could have gotten up there. But...
Yeah. So obviously they're freaking out at this point. They think they're screwed. And they try to get down to the front door, but it's covered in webs. The spiders, like, okay, well, how else can we get out? Oh, we can go through the car park. There's like a car park connected to the building. But the hallway going to the car park is completely covered in webs all the way around. And they can't do anything. However, they notice, because there's a light in this, and this was set up at the start of the movie, because this is like near the storage area. But the light's on like a timer so that it turns off on its own. So whenever they flip the light switch, it turns off after like, a minute, maybe less than that. And they notice that the spiders are moving when it's dark, but when the light comes on, they all stop. They all stay still. And they're like, okay. And you can tell what they're doing here. Like, I was excited because I'm like, this is a great idea for a set piece. They have to cross through this hallway that's completely covered in webs and covered in spiders to potentially get to safety. I was a little disappointed in the actual execution. I thought there could have been a lot more tension milking as they were walking across.
Sure. Yeah.
So I will say that. But it's pretty fun. Obviously the sister's staying back to like flick the lights back on, and then she's the one that's going to have to take the big risk by moving across in the time that she has with the light on. And maybe that was the problem, is maybe like you needed the risk of the light turning off for all of them rather than just her at the end. Maybe that's what made the first part feel a bit less suspenseful than it could have been. Yeah, it's fun though. The big thing is, though, is when they get to the other end and they try and open the door to the parking area, is there's like cops on the other side holding it shut, and they basically do a tug of war with the door, and you get this idea at this point that, oh no, the cops are keeping them in there. And maybe don't even care if they die. Like, this is more about containing the potential spread of the spiders than it is saving the people inside the building, kind of thing.
This is what really gave me like Wreck vibes.
Yeah, although I don't remember in Wreck a literal tug of war with a door where they're trying to get outside. That feels like almost boiling it down to like a super simple idea. And they're basically just worried that they're infected or they've been bitten and that they'll have spiders coming out of them. So, well, it's not a virus. It kind of still acts like one.
Like, yeah, it's kind of funny because like they do treat it kind of like that in some instances. Like earlier, again, when that old man is coming out of his apartment and is like, "Help me," and they're like, "Stay back, stay back." Like, it is kind of funny. It's like, well, I mean, even if he got bit by the spiders, it's not like he's gonna like bite them or whatever. I guess maybe they're just afraid that the spiders are gonna come out of them or something.
Yeah, because that's the thing. So they have to actually run back through the hallway after the SWAT guys like put some smoke grenades in the door. And when they're coming back, this is when Jordy dies. He gets left behind, and he's like, and when Caleb tries to go back for him because he really cares and is upset that he's been left behind, but he's already like webbed up against the wall, almost like Alien, like they're cocooning everyone, and he's like, just go, leave me, get out of here. So he does, and of course Lila's very upset because her boyfriend's just died. They have to like hold her back from running back for him. But during all this happening, Matthias was like, he was shaking for a while. And he stops and he looks up and he finds that he sees the cleaning lady like cocooned to the ceiling. But there is definitely like a clear implication here that he was bit. And that's something we're going to have to deal with. But we end up getting like a sequence here where they're sneaking up to get to the roof. Because they've got the kids at the start that had the firecrackers and the various things in their bag. They end up with that because it's in the cleaning lady's room. So they're like, hey, we can go up to the roof and try and like warn the surrounding buildings, maybe try and like signal for help or something. And they're going up and they're basically just using flares that this kid had in his backpack, and they've got like a little wind up light, and one of them's got their phone with a light on it, which by the way reminds me, at the party earlier at Claudia's, two of the guys were playing like a PS1 game.
All right.
And for a second, I'm like, wait a minute, is this like a period piece? But then, look, they've got smartphones and stuff, so clearly not. Maybe Claudia just has a PS1 because, like, she had, like, grandkids or something, and it's just been there for the last, like, 20, 30 years. I don't know.
I think they're playing, like, was it a Mortal Kombat?
It was something like that, yeah. It was a fighting game. They somehow get up to a room or an apartment like high up in the building, and it's all covered in plastic sheets where they end up kind of hanging out for a bit. This is where Lila and Caleb have their scene together, but it's also where we start to get a sense that this is where for me it kind of like I really like the character stuff here, particularly between Lila and Caleb, but this is where some of the SWAT guys come into the movie a bit more. And we end up getting this fight scene where, because they're telling everyone to like put their hands up and not like act out, Caleb just starts yelling and getting angry. So the SWAT guys like get more aggressive. So Caleb gets more aggressive back, and we end up in this fight scene where they're literally struggling each other down to the ground. And Caleb even grabs their gun and shoots at them. Now, admittedly, I think it's a beanbag gun.
Bullet?
Yeah, it's not like a lethal gun, but. It still felt like, dude, like you're just going to go to prison for this. Like, this is like too much stuff here. They basically get knocked out, and when they wake up, they're in the parking area with all the cops, and the cops have like killed a bunch of spiders out here, and they're like, hey, we were trying to help by like containing this, and they're all like tied up. They eventually untie the two girls, but the two guys are still tied up, and this is where Matthias, during all of this, decides to try and like cause a distraction for them to escape by running into the door that he knows leads to spiders because he knows he's dying. So he just like bursts in to let the spiders out. So we get this like, and this is admittedly a good moment where the camera just lingers on the door that's getting into darkness, and then eventually a bunch of spiders come out. But it makes you wait for it just for a good few seconds. So you really get to enjoy the suspense of that moment.
I understand like him wanting to sacrifice himself, like that's cool and everything, but yeah, like my first thought was like, all right, well now there's just a bunch of spiders in the room that they're in too, like.
I think my problem with that decision, I was like, I don't know, did they if they're going for the idea that the cops are never going to let them leave and that they're dead if they stay here, they really had to like hit that home harder for me to make me buy that this was worth doing this, because basically what he's done here is that he's unleashed all the spiders into the parking area, so all the cops are just trying to kill the spiders. So it's like, oh, you can escape in the chaos while this big fight's going down. Like, that's like a crazy idea. So this is where we get them sort of like running around together,
He promises Lila he'll go back for his sister when she gets left behind for a moment. And when he does go back for his sister, they end up in like a van and like confessing their feelings about their past and reconciling. And there's a giant ass spider, big as a German Shepherd or something, is like crawling through the window of this van, and it's going to get them. But then Lila's in another car and like turns on the lights, and that like freezes the spider, and they're able to get out. They get to the car, and they get to the opening, and they basically get out. Like that's pretty much it. I mean, there's a bit right at the end where there's a spider blocking their way, and he gets out and says, "Turn off the lights for a second because they'll stay frozen until you turn off the lights." So he's taking a risk that he might get attacked, but he's able to open the door, and then it cuts to the epilogue scene. So these three are the ones that survive. I will critique one little bit here. Well, okay, I'll critique two things. In general, I thought this was too much of an action scene with all the cops with all their guns shooting at spiders. It felt like it took away from like the fun of like this small group of characters creeping around trying to survive. This felt like all of a sudden there's like too many characters and there's chaos happening, and it's just not to my taste, I guess, for this type of movie. Sure. The other thing is that he makes his big speech to Lila where he's like, "I'm going to go back and get my sister and I'll be back, I promise, I swear it." Mm-hmm. And she'll make some promise and swear, and he goes to get his sister. I swear he runs for like maybe 5 seconds and then immediately he's at his sister, and I'm like, this wasn't as much of a tough journey as that speech made it sound like it was going to be. So I will critique that as well. But so I do think the ending's kind of the weakest part overall of the movie, but like not enough to drag it down too much, I would say. I mean, how do you feel about all this like final sort of set piece stuff?
Yeah, no, I do think it's kind of weird. Like, especially it seems like kind of weird to me where it feels like, you know, they're working their way through the building, and then it kind of feels like you have a goal where it's like, all right, we got to get to the top, and it's just kind of strange that it's like, oh, well, they don't really get there, and then they're just immediately like back down to like you know, the area that they were before. Not that like it didn't make sense or anything. Like, I understand why it's happening, but it just seems like, you know, like you're progressing one way, and then all of a sudden like you're in another area. And then yeah, I agree that like it does seem weird to like, okay, like we've pretty firmly been stating that like, you know, the spiders are the bad guy, and then it's kind of like, all right, well, actually the cops are like the real bad guys, and I don't know, maybe there's like some messaging there which like, yeah, I'm not like opposed to or whatever, but it's just weird that yeah, that's kind of like right at the end of the movie now we have this thing, and I don't know, maybe they just want a little more action and some more like, you know, bodies that the spiders can attack or whatever. Which actually, I don't think it's... Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, I forgot to mention that before they like make their whole trek upstairs to get to the room with all the plastic wrap, there's in the cleaning lady's room, they have kind of like a breakdown, and like this is where Caleb starts actually kind of crying and saying he's sorry. Like he realizing like, oh, I did this. And maybe that, you know, that tends to the metaphor, like him bottling things up ended up hurting everyone around him, because that's what it would do. Yeah, maybe that's, you know, again, part of what they're going for here.
Yeah, I wouldn't say like this whole ending bit and stuff that like I did have some fun with it. Like I wouldn't say I hated it, but I do agree that like, yeah, it's not as good as kind of some of the other stuff and direction of the movie that I liked before. I do also feel like it's a little kind of unfair to like not really show how, you know, Caleb ends up surviving, like, because I mean, I felt like, you know, all right, so he opens the door, and then it's just pretty reasonable to assume that, all right, the girls just, you know, drive out and they're okay, but I don't know, like like did he just run out too? Like, I don't know, did no spiders followed him or something? I
guess he just immediately shut the door behind him, and luckily no spiders got out. Like I guess that's it.
And I don't know if it's because he had the run-in with the cops, or maybe if he's doesn't want everything to be blamed on him, but I'm guessing he's just letting people think that he's dead now, because it's like his picture was on like the memorial wall or whatever that was at the end.
Yeah, they show this memorial wall, and you see like a lot of the neighbors, and you see his picture as well. And then you see the apartment building be demolished. You see it explode and collapse. And the two girls, Lila and Manon, are watching and looking emotional. And then the final scene of the movie is Caleb in the woods burying the photograph of him and Jordy as kids. And, you know, again, the metaphor here is that he's finally burying the past. He's finally letting this go. And it took all of this, you know, chaos to like finally make him realize that you had to let it go. So like, you know, like I think that part of it's fine for sure.
Oh yeah, no, I don't mind that. And then a spider like crawls on him and he blows it away, which I'm assuming that it's not the same type of spider.
No, this is just a random spider in the forest. Right. I think. Yeah.
Just the only reason why I was curious is just because like it's a little hard to tell because like the spiders are like different, they have such differences in sizes. I'm like, I don't know, maybe that's a baby one or something. Also, I was assuming like there's another thing that was a little like with the ending is like, I don't know, these are heroes and stuff, but like these things are so dangerous. Like, I don't know, you really gotta think like, I don't know, is it worth it like us escaping if we're potentially could be letting these things out like into the world?
Yeah, I mean, it's also entirely Caleb's fault, and I feel like I think this is where you have to think about it more the metaphor that it's going for, rather than just literally thinking about like him getting comeuppance for for what he's done, because he's effectively got like dozens of people killed. You know, that's ultimately what's happened here. So yeah, I can kind of get that. I think the movie's at its best when it's establishing the ensemble cast in the building, establishing the relationships, and then all the early spider stuff where it's building to them and it's giving you the first signs of them. I think once they're like completely taking over the building and there's webbing everywhere, there's some fun stuff set up in that section, but it's never, I don't know if any of it ever quite lives up to the potential it has. But
I agree. Yeah.
I'd be very curious to see what this director does with Evil Dead and what they can do going forward. This is his first movie. Like, he did a couple of short films before this, but this is his first feature-length movie. So it's for a first time, it's certainly not a bad outing.
Yeah, and I mean, who knows? Maybe he did want to do more stuff, but had like, you know, maybe there's only so much he could do with the budget. Or whatever.
Sure, yeah,
like,
yeah. He co-wrote it as well, so you know he's a big part of the creative force behind it.
Nice.
Director's name is Sébastien Vaniček. I'm going to say that is.
Sure.
I could be wrong though. Not like I know how to pronounce French names. If that even is a French name, I don't know if it is. Yeah, the movie's good. The movie's like, it's definitely worth seeing. It kind of had the makings of something that I was really, really, really going to like, and then I just liked it. You know, like, you know, just there's enough little things I didn't like that it came down to just I like this. But definitely one of the better horror movies we've seen this year, I would say, so far.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah. All right, well, Tim, what are you going to rate Infested?
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm just kind of echoing a lot of what you say, because, you know, I think we're kind of roughly on the same page, but... I mean,
if you're going to copy from the greats, Tim.
No, like I agree that I do think it is pretty good, but it doesn't quite reach like, you know, that great or amazing territory. So I'm gonna go just below an 8. I'll give it a 7.5. Has, you know, good, interesting characters that actually, you know, have you know, some like fleshed out arcs, and you know, I like spending time with it. The movie moved pretty quick. I thought it looked good. It made pretty effective use of its like setting and had some nice setups and payoffs. And again, just the big, you know, not to harp on it too much, but just like, you know, if we're dealing with like a monster or creature, you know, feature, like, yeah, I just want to see like a bit more, maybe some like gore and death or mayhem or whatever. So it's great that the movie is as effective as it is without, you know, maybe catering to that. But I think maybe a little bit of that, and then maybe a few tweaks here and there could have really put it over the edge. But I don't want to sound like I'm being negative, because again, I think it is still solid and works as is. But yeah, it's a shame that it wasn't maybe that high, but yeah, it still had a good time. And like you said, I'm interested to see where the director goes from here. Obviously, a big Evil Dead fan, so I'm definitely excited that that's the next thing that they're potentially doing. But I mean, after watching this, I think especially I'm eager to see what they're gonna do with that.
Yeah, I'm going with a straight 7. It's good, and that's what I give 7s to is just straight good, and I think that's where I'm going to land with this one. It's pretty old school in some ways as well, which I like. I like that it feels like a movie of like a from the 90s or something like that, and it's like concept and tone. So I appreciate that as well. So yeah, fun time. So that is Infested. Of course, you can support all the content and get a exclusive bonus episode every month over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, as well as even more stream segments at the $5 tier and some other things. Plus a bunch of stuff for the other movie podcast we do as well. I do a sci-fi movie podcast with David, as well as the Collector's Cut. So check out those. Check out the bonus content and Patreon for them. Next time on the show, we are looking at another newish release, and that is Baghead. So hopefully we like Baghead.
It's another one I've been hearing like some buzz about, so sure it'll be interesting to watch at least.
I've heard nothing, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just I've heard nothing, so I can't comment. But that is the show. So thank you very much for joining us, everyone. We will see you next time. Keep watching scary movies. Goodbye.